Well, once again, I'm hanging out with Susan Robertson. She's an innovation strategist and a Harvard professor, so way smarter than me. We're talking about, so my whole uh, 2020 after what it's been is like, I have to find childlike joy and be creative. And that's something that kind of goes away as we get older.
It does indeed.
Robinson has some ideas and tips on how we can regain that creativity. Basically, as when we're born and we grow up, we have all this creativity, but it's taught out of us. What does that mean?
Well, there's been actually a lot of research around creativity in people and where does it start and why do we seem to lose it? Because most adults would agree that we do. And there was one really interesting study done that they took a group of kindergartners and they gave them a test of creative thinking, and 95% of them scored in what would be termed highly creative. So virtually all of them, meaning all of us. And they took the same children 5 years later when they were in fifth grade and gave them the same tests of creativity, and the results had almost reversed. Only about 5% scored in what would be highly creative. And remember, there was the same kids, so they unlearned it. And there's not a lot of research around exactly why this is, but there's a lot of speculation that I think is probably fairly accurate. And the gist of it is that as we go through school and jobs later, we begin to learn that there are consequences to being wrong. And so we begin to avoid being wrong. And being creative by necessity almost means you're willing to admit that you might not be right. So that more adult-like mentality of I can never be wrong, I always have to be right, is what really stifles creativity. And it's very linked also to fear of failure. And in a work environment, it's often connected to fear of, again, a consequence, like I'm going to get demoted or I'm going to get fired if I try something really innovative and it doesn't work, boy, I'm out. And the reality is the research shows that's not really true. People actually don't lose their jobs for trying innovative ideas, but people believe that they will. So how to get around it? That's the question.
Yes, because I know plenty of people like, I have this great idea, but if it fails, and I mean, so.
And you just said it, it's the but, right? So we often say yes, but, or I have an idea, but, and it's that but that's the problem. So I have a trick, and I call this GPS thinking, and it helps us get around that but mentality, all right? So GPS stands for great problem solving. And here's the way you do it. When you have an idea or you hear an idea that somebody else said, anytime there's an idea, what you need to do first is make a conscious choice to avoid the but. And frankly, that's not instinctive. There's a lot of neuroscience around our instinct, why the but is there, but just know that the but is instinctive and we have to make a conscious choice. I'm going to hold off on that for a moment. And first, think about everything about that idea that could be great. What's interesting? What's valuable? What's heading us in the right direction? What are people going to like? What's helping me get toward my goal? What you're looking for is the potential in the idea, knowing it's not finished, it's got whatever those problems are, that's the but. And we're going to deal with that in a moment. But first, we're going to make a list of everything that could be good, potentially good. That's step one, G. Then you move to the P part, which is problem. And this is now acknowledging the problem that you saw in the idea, but there's one critical difference. And that critical difference is you want to articulate that problem in the form of a how-to question. So instead of saying, it's too expensive, instead you say, how can I make it more affordable? Or instead of saying, we don't have time, instead you say, how can we do it more quickly? So you are acknowledging that the idea isn't perfect yet, but you're putting it out there in a way that turns on problem solving in our brain. It's almost like flipping a switch. It flips off rejection and flips on problem solving, that putting in a question form. That's the key problem part. And then S, solution, is you now begin to solve for whatever those problems were you identified by changing the original idea. but keeping something or multiple things about it that you thought were great.
So if people want to connect with you to find out any other tips you have for reframing their mindset and reinvigorating that creativity, where would they find you?
They can find me on my website at susanrobertson.co.
All right. Thanks so much.
As sheriff, I brought people together to solve problems, and Congress